Hey there, welcome to episode 123 of the Social Business Engine podcast, the podcast where thought leaders from brands and technology companies, as well as independent thought leaders, contribute to your social business strategy to help you get better business results and to positively impact your career. I am Bernie Borges, your host of the Social Business Engine podcast. Hey, on this episode, I am excited to bring back Tim Hughes. Tim is a best-selling author, a speaker, and he's widely recognized around the globe as a social selling pioneer and innovator. Now, Tim is co-founder of Digital Leadership Associates, where he and co-founder Adam Gray provide training and coaching on social selling. So on this episode, we are going to discuss his new and best-selling book, Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. Now, this episode is sponsored by Outward Media, Inc., a leader in the direct marketing industry. Later in the show, I will tell you all about a valuable offer from Outward Media. So now, let's get to my interview with social selling innovator and pioneer, Tim Hughes. Tim, welcome back to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Thanks, Bernie. It's fantastic to be back. I was on episode 46, and a lot of water has passed under the bridge since then. I've written a book, and you're on 100 and something in terms of your episode list, and it's been a great ride, and great to be back.
Absolutely. Well, for my listeners who perhaps did not catch you back on episode 46, first I want to point out that I am located in Florida, and I know we were talking earlier before we started recording that you visited here not too long ago, but you're across the pond in the UK. So for those who might have picked up on that Brooklyn accent,
My James Bond accent. I live in London. I live in West London, in a place called Teddington, which is near Richmond. So yes, I'm not a US citizen.
Well, you and I met online, and we've yet to meet in person, but I know that that's going to happen one day because of your globe-trotting ventures and a little bit of my own, not quite globe-trotting, but some ventures as well. So let's begin with just a brief introduction, Tim, of your background, because before we get to your new book, which I'm excited to discuss with you and my listeners, let's give my listeners some background. You've got an extensive background in sales. You eventually got to social selling. So why don't we start with that background?
Okay, yeah, perfect. So 27 years in sales. I started on the telephone making cold calls. My first sales job, someone gave me a telephone directory and said, right, ring that. And I didn't know anything about value propositions or what it, but I kind of felt comfortable and quite enjoyed actually ringing people up and making a fool of myself. Something
tells me that's not what you did, but that's okay.
That and then going up through enterprise business to business selling. I remember getting my first $1 million deal, and then doing a deal for what was it, 38 million pounds. So that would be add another half, so that would be what, $50-60 million deal.
Wow.
And so I've built it up from the ground upwards. Then 7 years ago, I got involved in social media, and I kind of played around with it and got 5,000, 10,000 followers. I then decided that I actually wanted to write my own material, and I was actually sitting on a course in terms of a blogging course. And the person there said, you need to actually have something that you want to be, a subject matter that's going to be your own. What are you going to be famous for? And I happened to be taking part in a major sales transformation at a large B2B tech vendor, a US software house, where we were taking the sales force from selling one deal a year on premise to basically selling 5, 6, or 7 deals a year as a SaaS cloud proposition. Part of that transformation involved things like storytelling, whiteboarding, but it also involved social selling. And I realized that I'd been given a massive gift, and I thought, right, I'm going to be known for social selling. And that I want to, and that is something that I may do lots of other things, but ultimately social selling is my subject.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually called an innovator and a pioneer because I'm constantly trying to drive the subject forward. And that's what Matt and I, my co-author, have done in our book, is that we've tried to take the narrative and the discussion forward away from just personal branding. So the book isn't about personal branding. It's not about how to set up a LinkedIn profile. It's actually how to use social. And I quite often get asked, how do you get 150,000 followers? Actually, it's about how you can actually build your social presence as a salesperson.
Okay, so where I'd like to go as a segue to that, the title that you and Adam have given the book is Social Selling, Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. So I'd like to actually begin with some basics, and that is your definition of social selling. And I want you to, Tim, frame up your own experience. You said just a minute ago in your introduction that part of your legacy in corporate sales was this $50 million deal. That's incredible. Yeah. So talk about your definition of social selling as you experienced as an enterprise sales professional.
So if you look at the research, and for the salespeople listening, I'm going to talk to you about how this research applies to you. So I'm a great believer in the Sales Challenger book. In fact, I thought they were writing about me. That Sales Challenger, that was me. But that was always me, not from reading the book, but me from the get-go. I'm a new business sales guy. What I do is if you pardon the expression, I kick down doors, build relationships with people, and sell things. I was never very good at account management. It was always about building a relationship fast. And what I've done with social is actually take those offline skills and move it online. Mm-hmm. So if you think and look at all the facts and the research says that now what happens is that the buying cycle has got longer. So what happens is that customers are actually taking longer to buy things. And it's taking longer because the people are now wanting, there has to be a business case. There has to be change within an organization. So why are you going to actually change? And there's so much complexity because there's all kinds of apps and all kinds of products at all different stages and different price. But what's happened is that the people are now, when they're buying, they go online and do research. And when they go online and do that research, they actually are not talking to salespeople. In fact, they're in salesperson avoidance mode. Mm-hmm. Now, they may not contact a salesperson for anything between 40% of the buying process to 80%. I've seen figures from SAP where they're saying like 85%. And I'm aware of a B2B enterprise deal where the salesperson took a call from a customer and the customer said, we've seen all your demos on YouTube. We've done the research, and we just want to know how much it is and how we buy it. And so what we've seen is that whereas in the past people needed 80% of the information from the salespeople, they now only need 20%. So that doesn't mean that the salesperson is irrelevant. People still want to buy from people because they still want trust and they still want to shake someone's hand and look them in the eye and see that and feel that someone's going to actually care about them in terms of the project. But it means that salespeople have got less time to influence the sale. They've got less time to talk about their unique capabilities or do the demonstration or put them in front of people. And so I get a lot of people coming to me saying, well, I don't really see that I don't care. That for me, I sell big products and services. People are always going to talk to me. Yeah, they are. But you've got less time in which to influence. Mm-hmm. So
they may not come to you. They may eliminate you just from their online research.
Correct. And yeah, so we in the book we go into detail. We actually talk about some research that Google put out in November 2014 about the way people are doing research right now and the way that they're making decisions. What we're seeing is that as a whole, from what I've done is I've taken the way that I used to run my territory offline. Which the way that I did it, even 20 years ago, the way that I wanted to work with customers and prospects, and the way that I made sure that I nurtured people, though in the days gone by, I used to do that on the telephone, or and put things in Outlook to say, ring this person in 3 months. What I've done is I've lifted that and I've put it online.
Okay.
And that's what I talk about in the book, about how you can run your territory, how you can build influence, and how you can build a community, and do that online.
Okay. Now, you said just a moment ago that salespeople have less time to influence a sale, but I actually would like to use that as a segue, Tim, to talk about the role of influence, because you talk about that in your book, the role of influence in B2B sales. So do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes. So one of the things that we outline is the fact that if you're going to be to be in sales online, you need to be in a situation where the people that are buying, when they start looking, and they will do this in social networks, they will either research on social networks or they will ask questions of social networks. And if you just allow me to elaborate on that, mm-hmm. If you look at, certainly from the Google research, and it was also confirmed by the people that wrote the second book to the Challenger, which is the fact that there are people going out there, and society has changed. And what happens is that now, it started off with text messaging. When people didn't know the question at school, they were able to text people and say, "Do you know what question 10 is in the physics homework that we've got?" And because people are actually able to do that, then and they've been able to do that for something like 15, 20 years, they're used to asking their networks. If they need a new telephone system, they'll go out to their network and they'll say, "Does anybody know any good telephone systems?" Mm-hmm. And you need to be in those networks when those people ask those questions. Mm-hmm. Just as much as people will also go to Google and say, "I need a new telephone system." And if you've got a piece of content that says 10 things that you need to know when you're buying a new telephone system, those pieces of content will be consumed as people actually do their research. Because ultimately, what people want to do is that if you think about and place yourself in terms of the buyer, they want to be educated,
right?
Because if we take something fairly simple like you're going out and buying a new car, unless you're a real petrol head or gearhead, I think, as you call them in the States, unless you're a real gearhead and you know all the stuff, if you think of, if you're going out and buying a car, you probably, and haven't bought one for 4 years, you probably don't know what's available. So you will go out and you'll check and you'll see what's available around your budget and what power windows are versus electric windows, or whatever the specification is. And if someone's actually out there educating you, you're likely to probably start engaging with that person and may even buy from that person. Okay.
So the influencer role is basically influencing the buyer during their research phase. Is that a fair way to characterize it?
It is. And it's no different from what I used to do in the analog days of knowing what was going on in my territory. And in the old days, what I would do is I would talk to lots of people, and I would phone them up and find out. And I would always I knew if there was a new entrant, a particular competitor coming into that industry. And sorry, but I'm a sales guy, and I would make sure that new competitor would end up spending a lot of time and then exiting from my industry, because that's the way the sales mm-hmm. guy I am. I own the territory. Mm-hmm. And what sales guys and girls can do is make sure that they own their territory online. And the fact that all of our customers now are online, you need to go where the customer is.
Excellent. Okay. Before I get to my next question, Tim, I want to take a brief pause for a message from our sponsor. Outward Media, Inc. is a leader in the direct marketing industry, providing businesses access to the largest SMB email database for the acquisition of new customers. OMI has a commitment to data accuracy that I find very impressive because it helps you identify your best prospects so that you can generate more qualified leads. In fact, OMI offers a 95% accuracy guarantee on all email data for 30 days. I urge you to download OMI's ebook, The Executive's 15-Minute Guide to Building a Successful Email Marketing Database to discover the essentials for improving email deliverability. Now, when I read this ebook, I discovered at least 3 things that we needed to address. It's really a must-read for all digital marketers. You can get your copy now at outwardmedia.com/SBE, and you can also find the link to this ebook at our website at socialbusinessengine.com. So, Tim, I want to talk a little bit about how an organization adopts social selling. First of all, if you've got a salesperson, an individual salesperson, and he or she embraces social selling, how can he or she get social selling to be adopted by their organization?
The first thing about social selling is that it's a strategy. It's a change of the way that you work. It's a change in behavior. And what we're not saying is that you just implement social selling and you stop phoning and you stop emailing. Mm-hmm. It's another channel for you to use. But as you're on the phone, and if you're making, say, calls out, what you're doing is that you may ask the people to connect to them on LinkedIn. So you're actually working with social as you're working the phone, just as an example. Mm-hmm. But you need to look at, and the way that we work at Digital Leadership Associates is that we see social as a transformational project or a change project that changes behavior across sales, moving into marketing, digital marketing, and even into HR, because it may actually impact on the recruitment process. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So from a sales perspective, you kind of need the buy-in from the top, and ultimately it comes down. Now, a lot of people come to me, salespeople go, my boss doesn't understand social. They think it's about taking pictures of your lunch and it's for kids and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. What do I do? So what I always recommend is you actually start off with a pilot, and maybe you do something yourself and you actually prove it out, and then you show the other salespeople. The way that I worked at this large tech vendor was that there was a particular salesperson, and you may remember from the episode 46 that this sales guy's got 2,000. His dog's got 2,000.
How
followers.
could I forget that, Tim? I'll never forget that.
And so he was particularly social. So we would always go to Andy and say, Andy, we're thinking of implementing marketing automation. What do you think to this? And then we would basically show him and say, look, when someone comes to the website, you can see where they've clicked and what things they've downloaded, and you'd go, wow, that's amazing. And he would start showing the other people. So it was really that we would have 2 things. One is that we had a very charismatic VP that would push things down, but we also got Andy in effect to push things up. And you can, obviously it's best to have both, but if you don't have that person actually saying we need to be social selling from a strategy perspective, then you kind of need to build it out from a pilot.
So it's kind of a bottom-up approach then.
In that case, it was a bottom-up,
yeah. Okay. So then once, let's say the boss says, I'm buying into this, I get it. How does an organization then roll out a social selling strategy?
Well, as I said, it requires a certain amount of behavior change and organization change. We actually recommend in the book that there is a particular individual that we call a social community manager that is sitting within the sales department, and you probably need one department by department. Matt, my co-author, and I sat down and we brainstormed this, and we were saying, how can we get people, especially within B2B organizations, to go through this change and not go back to what they were doing before, and embed the process. And we decided saying we need to have somebody that the salespeople respect and will actually live and breathe. And so when they're getting up in the morning and they're cleaning their teeth, they're actually saying, not like I would do in sales, like what am I going to do and who am I going to see from a sales perspective, but they would actually be caring around what can I do to make sure that we're embedding social selling in the organization. And we probably only need this person for about 3 to 5 years. But ultimately, what we kind of see this individual as helping and enabling all the salespeople to build their influence in their communities, just the same as they would do that from a territory perspective. Show them the new tools and techniques, because social is ever evolving and changing. And that's kind of the way that we kind of saw that.
And is that person, Tim, that social community manager, someone that would be cross-functional across sales, marketing, and HR?
It may be that it may be in a small organization, yes. In a large organization, probably no.
Okay.
But I'm seeing this certainly in a number of organizations after we actually kind of brainstorm this, and we actually in the book we itemize the attributes of this person and kind of things that we expect them to do. And that's actually there's actually a friend of mine who has this role in a large organization in the UK, and it's actually with him in mind that we actually put up these attributes into the book, and we are seeing this role taking place in organizations, because those people quite often are attracted to me because of my content, because they want to keep up to date with stuff.
Okay. So, Tim, I want to talk about one more topic before we begin to segue to my recap, and that is measuring success. You actually touched on it a little bit earlier, but I'd like to spend a little more time on it. You know, clearly you've had tremendous success in your sales career, both before social and with social. So can you just talk to how does an organization measure success with social selling?
Yeah. So when we if I talk about the book, one of the things that we were very, very cognizant of when we wrote it is that people could accuse social selling as being fluffy. Mm-hmm. As you know, what's the ROI here? Mm-hmm. And the first brainstorm session that Matt and I had, I actually went to had a meeting in the morning, and it was a sales leader, and the sales leader leant over the desk and they said to me, and I quote, "But I'm going to take the swear words out. Tim, this social selling stuff is all very interesting, but where's the leads?" Mm-hmm. And I happened to relay this story to Matt when I saw him in the evening, and he said, "Well, that kind of is our strapline. Whenever we brainstorm stuff, we now need to go, where's the leads?" Uh-huh. And so from a measure perspective, and what we do at Digital Leadership Associates, it's all about measurement. It's all about how many leads you're going to get and the revenue you're going to get. Okay. And we would be expecting, and this is a bit of a, I know this may seem like a bold claim, but we would be expecting an upturn of revenue of something like 20-25% if you implement social selling. And the reason why I can boldly say that is because you're probably doing it in an industry where nobody else is doing it, and immediately you'll get first mover advantage.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for calling it revenue as opposed to turnover. Just a little side note there. and people often say to me, "Well, why isn't it profit?" And I say, "Well, I have no way of working out what your profit is. You know, right. I can increase the revenue, right? But you know, you may go and spend the money, so I can't increase the profit." But okay, and we've actually, so what Adam and I have done at Digital Leader Associates is we've actually created some IP. So we've actually created an ROI tool that actually allows you to measure it. We can go online and actually do some research ahead of talking to people. And we've also done, we've got a relationship with Brandwatch where we're able to do some stuff about from a social media listening point of view. And we're able to come up with, you know, quite a pack in terms of going to people and saying, this is where we think you are. This is where we think that you can go. Is that something that's of interest to you? And that's all about the measurement is key and the governance is key. And that's, you know, going back to tracking simple things like, you know, the deals that you're doing and the way that you're accessing people over social, the relationships you're building, and the way that you're able to track that right back to the deals that are done. Okay, terrific. All right. But well, before we get to the final wrap, I want to do a quick summary of what we discussed here today, Tim, for my listeners. We began our conversation with an impressive review of your 27-year history of sales experience with a focus on enterprise B2B. You mentioned that you did a $50 million deal. Was that your capstone deal, kind of the biggest deal you've done in your career?
Yeah, it's the biggest deal I've ever done. Yeah.
Well, They don't get much bigger than that. Fantastic.
No.
You also talked about how you spent about the last 7 years or so in getting involved in social media, and that you very quickly determined that social selling was really your brand. You became known as an innovator. You became known as a pioneer because you kept advancing the conversation. And so in your new book, you really focus on how to use social media in sales. You talked about how you were partly influenced by the Sales Challenger book, and that you've always been good at relationship building, but where you really started to understand social selling and its impact is relationship building online. You talk about how buyers are going through a longer buying cycle, but of course a lot of that is conducted online through their research, and that depending on what research you read, it comes down to about a 20% window of opportunity for the B2B salesperson to be involved in the sales process. So the salespeople have less time to influence the sale, and they've got to be in there to influence it. So we also talked about how social selling is a strategy, a change in behavior, and I couldn't agree with you more. And how it really is about organizational change. You talk about how in the book you cover this concept that you've seen implemented, the social community manager, an individual who's focused on really enabling the salespeople to become proficient at social selling. You said that that person is focused on the sales department, but based on your response to my question, could be cross-functional in smaller companies. And that this person typically would be embedded for some number of years, 2-3 years, to really, again, enable the salespeople to build influence. And how the whole social selling thing is transformational. It really eventually goes across sales, marketing, and HR. And then we talked about how when the boss doesn't understand social, start with a pilot. And in those cases, maybe have a bottom-up approach. And then we capped it off talking about measuring social selling. You said that you recognized early on that social selling could be criticized as not being viable. And in a conversation, kind of a watershed conversation, it sounds like, Tim, you were challenged with where's the leads? So you and Matt decided in the book that you had to make it all about the leads. And if I understand correctly, also in Digital Leadership Associates, it's all about the leads and building pipeline with an emphasis on building, increasing revenue by 20 or 25%, and that you're measuring governance, relationships, and you're tracking leads. So that's my recap. Feel free to elaborate or fill in any holes that I may have left out.
No, Bernie, that's really good. I mean, there's only one more thing that I would say. I mean, I was doing a podcast the other day it was a Google Hangout, and when you're sitting there and you see the other people's faces.
Yeah.
And I said something about personal branding. I said there's a lot of people at the moment that are going around saying, hey, you need personal branding. It's all about LinkedIn. Put a LinkedIn profile up. And we were doing some training the other day, and these people have put these LinkedIn profiles up, and it's just like, guys, unless you're getting inbound on your LinkedIn profile, it's not working for you. You need to be in a situation where your LinkedIn profile isn't just about this advert. Everybody has that nowadays. Mm-hmm. You need if everyone's basically selling vanilla ice cream and someone comes along with chocolate ice cream, where's everybody going to go? And you need to be making sure that it's your competitive advantage. And you need to be, if you're not getting inbound on your LinkedIn profile, it ain't working.
Well, Tim, you're talking our language. We've just recently published an online course that's focused on the social profile, and we talk about converting your profile from a resume to a sales asset.
Yes, absolutely.
For the very point that you just made.
Yeah.
So thank you for reinforcing that.
Hey, no problem.
Well, Tim, where would you like to send all my listeners to learn more and also pick up a copy of Social Selling, Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers?
Bernie, so the book, Social Selling, Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers, is available on Amazon. It's available as a paperback, and it's available in Kindle. It's already been shipping. I think it's now shipping right across the world.
Awesome.
Bestseller on there. My Twitter is Timothy_Hughes. That's TIMOTHY_ and then Hughes is HUGHES. And I'm also on LinkedIn. And I say to people, any of the people that are listening, please contact me if you want more information. Don't hold back. Please make contact, and please contact me on Twitter or LinkedIn.
Well, Tim, my listeners know that will all be linked up in our show notes, and I just want to reinforce that what you just said I know is sincere because I've seen you interact with people. That's how we've met.
Yes.
So you are one authentic social
Thank you.
Individual. I was going to say dude. That's kind of a U.S. term. I don't know how that flies in the UK.
Hey, I'll take dude, yeah.
All right. Terrific. Well, Tim, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights and a quick little summary of social selling techniques to influence buyers and change makers. Well, I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Tim Hughes. I want to remind you that this episode is sponsored by Outward Media, Inc., a leader in the direct marketing industry. I invite you to download OMI's ebook, The Executive's 15-Minute Guide to Building a Successful Email Marketing Database, to discover the essentials, and I mean the essentials, for improving email deliverability. Get your copy now at outwardmedia.com/SBE. And you'll also find this link on the show notes page for this episode at our website at socialbusinessengine.com. And hey, before I close out this episode, I want to invite you to become a member of our Social Business Engine community. Membership is free and it provides premium content that we only make available to members. Our community is made up of thousands of business professionals whose common interest is using social media strategy, social technology, and social culture to create better business results and to improve their career. It's easy to become a member, and remember, it's free. Just visit our website at socialbusinessengine.com. Well, that is going to do it for episode 123. I want to thank my guest once again, Tim Hughes, best-selling author and social selling innovator and pioneer. This is Bernie Borges, wishing you continued success on your social business journey.